Alright, so it is the end of week 3 already. It is Sunday, and I'm gonna run over all the trades from the week. Again, it was a really busy week for me. I didn't spend too much time at home actually trading the way I like to. A lot of it was on the go. And before we get into this week's trades, I'll go over the trade I was in at the end of the last episode. I did close this out. I eventually got stopped out at entry, but I did hit one more TP on it, and I realized 27 bucks on it. I believe that is actually slightly lower than what my total profit was realized and unrealized when I marked it in on the spreadsheet last time. So, I technically took a bit of a loss because I didn't realize that like $6 that I was up. And then that gets us into the first trade of this week. So this was Tuesday afternoon on the 24th. I entered a short around 106K, and that was on weeks. Exited that trade for a profit of 89 cents. However, something that I realized about this P&L is this does not account for fees. So if I want to account for fees, I have to go over to order details, and I have to find the order. So to open the short, I paid a fee of 21 cents. And then to close the short, no fees. I guess I did it via limit. Just an FYI for the future, this does not account for fees. But the next trade I took was on Antarctic. So this was the next day. I took a short around 107K. That would be this one right here. If I click on here, because it doesn't show my entry price, 107K for my open, and that was a loser, minus $3 on that one. Next was a long on Thursday at 107,500 on Antarctic. And this one was a bigger loss, more than a 1%. I guess I either got filled lower than my stop loss order or I moved my stop loss down after entry. I don't remember. But yeah, this is the open price for that, 107.5. So not off to a great start. A couple losses in a row and one win that was barely even a win. And then next, I believe this is the long that irritated me a bunch because this trade bluffed me out of my winning position. It basically, I entered over here, it came back down around my entry, started ranging a bunch, and I mean, when you front run a low this close and then you start ranging and you're not like immediately pulling back up, that whole time you're thinking, oh, should I close it at break even? Should I close it at break even on every single one of these candles that are flashing your P&L red and green? And eventually I did end up basically bailing at a break even. I took a 20-cent loss on that, and then there were fees on top of that as well. But pretty soon after, price went on to pump well past my target, so that was a tough one to watch. And I eventually took another loss soon afterwards on weeks as well, and I took a full $3 loss on that one, plus the fees, which were kind of hefty. They were 23 cents both ways for the first trade, and then 58 cents both ways for the second trade. So like, I don't know, $1.60, $1.70 just in fees there. And this was actually the start of something very weird that I noticed about Bitcoin over the last few days. Is we had a pattern of front running lows. This low front ran this low, this low front ran the front run. Even on this move to the upside, we front ran this high right over here, this high. So I just noticed that there was a bunch of fake outs when it comes to sweeping liquidity. We come very close to taking out a significant low, one that probably has stop losses on the other side of it, but we decided to front run it. And that pattern continued even on the lower time frames. This was a front run of this low. I even believe this was a front run of the high. And yeah, it was. So even in the mini ranges that we formed afterwards, we did a bunch of front running. I mean, you could even maybe consider this front running the high again. We came close to it. We came close to the low again, but I mean, at this point, we're kind of triangling. I just thought that was very odd. Normally, Bitcoin does not do that. But yeah, that gets us to our next trade. This was a long from 107.3 on Antarctic, and that would be this trade right here. So another loss, minus $3 on that. And I think I ended up taking this loss over here. Pretty sure I held it for this. We came pretty close to me taking profits. I was almost up 3-1 on that. But apparently I was not able to find that TP, and I took a loss. I did not de-risk either. And at this point, this is turning out to be a pretty bad trading week. I actually added up my total losses, including fees. I was down at this point $17.55. So almost all of the profits that I made last week I gave back up until this point. And I was holding off on making this update video. I was hoping that over the weekend I would be able to find a trade to, make an interesting episode. I don't want to make an episode of me just taking a bunch of losses. That's not very fun. And today I was actually able to find that trade. So I entered along earlier today, and I actually have a recording of me planning this idea a bit ahead of time. I believe at the time we were somewhere around this area, and I did not take the trade I was planning at the moment, but I'll still play that clip because the overall idea is one reason that I was looking for longs in this area. It is Sunday the 29th right now. I haven't even made my recording for the third week of the challenge yet. I'm looking at entering a trade, and I can actually kind of go over this one a little bit. So we've been range bound for a while here. We recently just came up to take out the high of the range, and after doing that we kind of got a bearish rejection, came back down to backtest the value area high point of control area, and ran into a previous range, potentially backtesting that as support. And we were starting to see some bullish things around the point of control. This is kind of a decision point if we started losing the point of control as well as daily open, just the key supports that we have in this area that may lead me to believe that we might continue rotating to the low end of the range. But we're starting to see a bit of bullishness here. We recently got a market structure switch here, breaking back above the value area high, and now we are trying to backtest it. So I've got a long idea drawn up here, and I want to show how I actually determine my risk. So I want to risk about $4.80. So I type in 4.8. So first thing is my dollar amount, and then I divide that by this number that pops up on the bottom of these position tools, this 132. And what that is just the size of my stop loss basically from my entry in terms of US dollars. So how many US dollars does Bitcoin have to decrease to go from my entry to my stop loss? And it is $132. So you can see 107,591 to 107,458 should be $132. So I type in 132. And then I click that button and I copy this over to my exchange because that is my position size. And this gives you your position size in the asset that you're trading. I'm trading Bitcoin, so this is going to be in terms of Bitcoin. Not every exchange, allows you to type in your position size in terms of Bitcoin. It might have to be in terms of US dollars. So if you have to do that, there's one extra step. You have to figure out, all right, how much is this much Bitcoin worth? You multiply this number by the current price of Bitcoin. Or I like to do the price of Bitcoin that I'm going to enter at. So that'd be 107,591. And then I hit enter, and that gives me the value of that amount of Bitcoin. So I would, paste that into it if I was entering in terms of US dollars. Just figured I would explain that real quick while I'm waiting for this entry. I'm not, loving how we are kind of hovering below this higher low right now, but we are, possibly just breaking lower to backtest support. But I want to see a bit of bullish buyback here. So I'm looking to enter somewhere up around this area, and we're kind of just stalling at this point. So what ended up happening is we did not hold the support area I was initially watching, but we came down to SFP, what basically became a range low. I was looking at this market structure switch that we saw prior, and technically, even though we put in a lower low here, we still maintain structure. We only SFP'd the low. You are technically allowed to do that. So price taking out this low did not necessarily void the bullish break here because we only SFP'd it. And eventually, after we started moving aggressively to the upside, I was able to find a local setup, and I was initially targeting this area of resistance here. And this was a bit of a sweaty trade as well. You'll notice that my stop loss actually, technically got taken out here. I managed to exit out of my stop loss just in time, and I was just manually watching this. So as we came down, I noticed that, hey, we could SFP this low. I don't want to, be the guy that gets their stop loss tagged here before a massive pump, because I'm sure, a lot of people entered the same trade as me, and a lot of people had the same stop loss. Hence the reason why we took out that low and then aggressively pumped from there. We got a little bit of a stop hunt before the actual move. And, after this little sweat here, this was pretty much smooth sailing. I've been taking profits along the way. I'll just go ahead and exit out because we have, at this point, gotten a pretty aggressive move to the upside. and we took out one significant high. I am currently now targeting the next logical point, which I think is this high over here. I would say is technically a valid market structure point as well. It does have significance there. We have a higher time frame downtrend that we are still technically in. We are also at the value area high of the sideways range that we formed since all-time high. But yeah, this trade over on Antarctic is currently up just under 30 bucks, 15 in realized, 14.4 in unrealized. And that pretty much does it. Those are the 7 trades that I took this week. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a bit longer and see if I end up taking any more profit on this trade here before I actually update the spreadsheet. So I just closed 1/3 of the remaining position. I was actually considering closing all of it, but this could potentially turn into a swing long. I still think we can continue higher here, even though we are kind of struggling at the high at the moment, and we are starting to fall below VWAP. And I want to go to bed, so I wanted to secure a bit more profits, make sure I have close to 4% locked in. I entered this trade with $4.8 of risk, which did eventually turn into more risk because I took away my stop loss, but we'll stick with the $4.8 risk. And 4.8 times 4 is 19.2, so I have just under 4% locked in already, and I don't know, we'll say maybe 1.75% in unrealized. So I updated the spreadsheet. The totals for this week, including unrealized, did include that $8 in unrealized. And as of right now, we are actually profitable on the week, so I managed to turn it around at the last second. I went from down 17 bucks to up a couple dollars on the week. And I was wondering why that doesn't exactly add up with these two numbers, but that's because I included the unrealized profit from one of the trades in last week as well. So really it was minus more than 17 bucks if you count the unrealized. So far, we have been slowly crawling our way to the upside. We had a bad week to start off, and nothing really too eventful so far in the challenge. I haven't been able to get many of these good trades back to back, which is really how I'm going to grow this account. So, I mean, that's going to be my goal moving forward, is to try and find the best possible trade setups and ideally take multiple of them in a week, and also not lose a lot of trades and give back my profits. So, yeah, that does it for this video. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. I appreciate the support. And I'll see you all in the next episode.